What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of That Time in Hip Hop, a podcast about nostalgia, history, but more important, the preservation of hip hop music and culture right here on Hip Hop Now Podcast YouTube channel. With me, as always, the homie from Into the Dome podcast, intothedome.com. Tony, what's good, man?
Hey man, everything good, man. How about you, man? You and the family, everybody good?
Everybody good, man. I gained about 10 pounds now. I gotta
Oh,
work off. I gotta work it. I gotta work it
you
off.
know, well, look, man. Last weekend, I was in Miami for 4 days, man, with some of the fellas, man. I fraternity retreat, man. So of course it's bourbon every day, bunch of food, bunch of everything, man. So I had to get back here and get back on a bike, man. And my first day back on a bike, man, I felt like I was about to have a heart attack, man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
I
man.
like, yeah, I put on a couple of pounds, got to burn off, man. So I was able to burn about 3 rides in. You're able to burn it off pretty good because you burn so many
Right,
calories when you cycle the way I cycle. People know I cycle pretty serious. So, but
right.
it take a few days, man, for your body to get back used to all that, all these climbing all these hills here in North Carolina, man. But I feel you on that, bro.
Yeah, every time, man, it's like take a little break. Cause I took a couple of gym breaks also. And when you get back, that first day is just like, yo, I feel like I can't ever take a break, or else I'm gonna just get really old. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can't really, man.
It's ridiculous. Uh, if you are watching right now or listening on your favorite podcasting app, this podcast is available everywhere when it comes to the audio podcast, but specifically also right here on YouTube on the Hip Hop Now podcast channel, where we hit 500 subscribers. Now we on the road to 1,000. I think we're at 650 now, so gaining some traction, but we still need more people to support. So if you've never heard of That Time in Hip Hop, you're like, well, what's this? It's not your regular podcast. Nah, man, we got 70, probably 80, but 70 plus
Yeah.
episodes about everything from hip hop moguls to hype men to famous battles like Jay-Z versus Nas, Busy B versus Kool Moe D. That
Mhm.
time in hip hop where KRS-One threw PM Dawn off the stage. You probably like, who's that? It's kind of like Drake back then almost. But they had some dope joints. But
Yes,
yeah,
Joyce.
hip hop was crazy. You know what I'm saying? From things talking about like film and hip hop history, 6 degrees of separation, what ifs in hip hop. We've kind of done it all. Some of your favorite albums, like Only Built for Cuban Links, which was our first episode.
Yep.
We've given flowers to many, including MC Hammer and Jermaine
Yes,
Dupri, Master P. You know what I'm saying? Lil Wayne.
indeed.
So check out the That Time in Hip Hop playlist right here on the channel. You can go through the episodes. This is another episode where we're going to go over some dope things in hip hop that happened. But before we do that, we have to pay respects and homage to one of our content creator homies, one of our fellow boxing dudes, and just brother in general, Robert Silver. Me and Tone had the pleasure of hosting a podcast called Championship Rounds Podcast with him. Uh, Very animated. Just
Love it.
a quick story on how I found him. I just remember wanting to hear a boxing podcast, and I was, on my commute to work, and I just was searching, and I found a World Championship podcast, which I forget the other dude's name, but Robert Silver was one of the
Yeah, I remember.
hosts. And I just remember I was like, man, this dude sound like a throwback. Like this is real boxing talk.
Yeah.
And we all connected on the internet, came together to do that podcast, which I might just upload all the episodes again because I took most of them down, so people could check him out. But we had a great time, man. He was the homie. He was always supportive of what we were doing, whether it was Into the Dome or myself with Hip Hop Now podcast. So we just want to give our condolences to his family. and just say he was a great man. We only known him for a short time, but for the people he touched in that short period of time, everybody has great things to say about him, and he'll be missed. Tone, if you want to give a couple of words.
Yeah, man, and true indeed, man. Like I said on Twitter the other day, man, like it was definitely a pleasure, man, doing championship rounds with him, because I'm gonna tell you, I don't know too many people who knew more about boxing than Robert, and who was that passionate about boxing. He was serious about the sport of boxing. He was a true historian about the sport. I'm talking about, he's like Mike Tyson, the way Mike Tyson kind of like a boxing savant that knew dates and times and what was going on in the world when that boxing match happened and stuff like that. He gave listeners that, you know what I'm saying? And to your point, Veg, you know what I'm saying? I remember running across, I think one of his first boxing podcasts he had, and hearing that voice and his laugh was infectious, you know what I'm saying? And he would laugh. It was, you know, he was unique, man. He had a very unique way about delivery, and his whole persona was very unique, man. But so serious about boxing, what I'll never forget, man. We known a couple of years, and we collaborated, man. He always supported my joints too, and me and him both had affinity for Sade, you know what I'm saying? So Rob really loves Sade, same way I do, you know what I'm saying? So man, we're gonna definitely carry on, man, with his legacy, man, what he meant to a lot of people, you know what I'm saying? And condolences again to him, his family, man. And I know he was a great father as well, and stuff like that, man. So he's definitely gonna be missed, man. We still shocked, man. It's still surreal, man. I remember I went to his page and just to check it out one day, man. Like, damn, man, So yeah, man. Rest in peace to the good brother, man.
Rest in peace, man. All right, so now we're going to get into what we like to do to start off the show. It's this month in hip hop history. Now, I'm going to cheat because this is from October, but who cares, right? Who cares? On October 23rd, 2007, Little Brother released their third album, The Get Back, or Get Back. That was the name of it, Get Back. Tone, just real quick, I remember 2007, I had officially moved, bought the house that we have here, moved from B-More, where I was living, through college and worked a little bit, and moved to Jersey because I got a job. And I remember, because when you come back home, so to speak, I'm not from Jersey, I'm from New York, but it's all close, it's all relative. I just remember the commute, and originally I was commuting from Brooklyn to Jersey, and I just remember, the albums were just sticking with me, and I remember I was like, oh, Little Brother got another album, and I ain't gonna front, felt some kind of way. I was like, wait a minute, where's Ninth?
Right.
But man, when I hit play, I was like, damn, this is just too good. Like these brothers are just too good at what they do. For not enough people to know about him. And I remember I praying that Get Back like crazy. Lil Wayne's verse was crazy on there. Like the whole album was dope to me at the time. And it's just unfortunate that things, not that it's the worst thing in the world. I mean, things happen. People are people. But it's just unfortunate when you see so much promise, and I mean even beyond my fandom or the core fans, and it's almost forgotten because of everything else that happens in hip hop history, unfortunately. And people tend to only remember like The Listening or The Minstrel Show, but Get Back was just as dope.
Yeah.
So, when you heard this album in 2007, what were your thoughts about Little Brother's Get Back?
Well, again, this show tonight hits close to home. Obviously, I'm being from North Carolina, and with Little Brother, with Ninth being obviously everybody know, personal friend of mine, which is ironic enough. I'm talking about the Get Back today, and he literally called me this morning about something. It wasn't even music related, but Anyway, it's kind of ironic we're talking about little brother right now. So yeah, during that time, of course, I knew what was going on. I knew he was already they had already kind of split ways a little bit, but he did submit a couple of joint beats, and they did have that Breaking My Heart joint with Lil Wayne on there and stuff like that. But Knife only had one beat on the Get Back, you know what I'm saying? And that was it. But in true fashion, Fonte is a dope artist. You know what I'm saying? Pooh is a dope MC. Fonte is a dope MC, but a dope artist, of course, with the Foreign Exchange and everything like that. Right. He had already had some success with the Foreign Exchange, and of course, the mixtape and the first 2 albums of Little Brother. The dudes can rap. You know what I'm saying? They got a good ear for beats because, what I'm saying, even outside of Ninth, when they dealt with Crisis and other guys they dealt with over the years, Knots and, what I'm saying, High Tech and, and some of these guys on the album too, some of them, so I wasn't really worried about it. I was just a little upset because I really wanted to see Knife and Fonte and Pooh make more music together. You know what I'm saying? So that was my big thing. Like I wasn't worried about the album. It's gonna be dope. You know what I'm saying? But I wanted P to be with them. But they had some differences, man. And I know people might have seen that. Not to be long-winded, people might have seen that documentary that Little Brother dropped. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of talking points around that documentary that I'll leave alone. But nevertheless, man, I mean, yeah, dope beats, dope rhymes. Like Fonte said, what else you want? They gave you that with the Get Back, and you know what I'm saying? The production was, like I said, I enjoyed it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to be biased and say, like I didn't like it because Knife only did one beat. Nah, the album was dope. You know what I'm saying? Critically acclaimed like the other two before it. You know what I'm saying? They didn't miss a beat in terms of putting out quality. But there were people saying they missed the Knife sound in terms of some of the soulfulness that they might miss. You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, man, a part of their dope discography, and they have a dope discography, man. That's just another chapter in it, man. I ain't mad at it at all, bro. And I think if you go back and listen to it now, it aged very well.
Yeah, you're right. It did age very well. And you made a great point, because I think that was the thing. I don't know how, I didn't hear many people who didn't like it, but I know at that time, that was the thing initially. Like, as with any situation, EPMD coming back years later, felt different. You know what I'm saying? From what you were used to just a couple of years later. So, again, for those watching, very dope album. If you really only know the current stuff and maybe the first 2 albums and a couple of mixtapes with Ninth, definitely check out Get Back.
Yeah,
it's a dope addition to their catalog. But now we're going to get into the meat of this episode. You already saw the title. You saw the images. You know what I'm saying? You see the image behind us. Maybe we'll make it a little bit bigger or whatever. Who cares? But we're here to talk about something that happened in hip hop at a time not that long ago, but some people may have forgot. So we're really going to drill down on this topic. Tone, tell the people what we're here to talk about.
Look, man, we still in NC, man. So I'm feeling good tonight. We just talked about Lil Brother. We're gonna stay in NC, and we're gonna travel from where Lil Bro was in Durham. We're gonna go over to Fayetteville. You know what I'm saying, for the third release of J. Cole 2014 Forest Hills Drive, man. And look, I think that when dope MCs come out, sometimes they first album define them, and sometimes you have to wait a little while just to get their full potential, to see their full spectrum of talent and skills, man. And even though Cold War Sideline Story was a solid start, we'll get into some of that. And Born Sinner was another notch up. When Forest Hills Drive dropped, man, December of 2014, man, that's when it all came together. You know, that's when J. Cole, for me, he already showed he could rap. When you think about his mixtape days, we're going to talk about some of that in this episode as well. But when you think about his mixtapes and showing up to certain radio stations, freestyling, leading up to sign with the Rock Nation, and all of this stuff, you're like, okay, he can rap. And we heard the first 2 albums, he rapping, he's spitting because he can spit. But when you listen to him, man, as far as Hill, you start hearing more of his melodies and harmonies and some of his hooks he was doing. You saw him a little more creative with his production, because everybody know that J. Cole do most of his own production. You know what I'm saying? So you heard some of that. I think his storytelling went up a whole nother notch. His visuals for his videos changed a lot. You know what I'm saying? He got more deeper. He started having some videos with some historic context in it. You know what I'm saying? And this is probably the album where, okay, now he's separating himself from a lot of peers. And this is probably the beginning when we start thinking about that big three. When you think about this is, you know what I'm saying, after Kendrick has dropped, you know what I'm saying, Good Kid, Mad City and stuff like that. And Drake has already ascended, you know what I'm saying, to superstar proportions and things of that nature. Now you have J. Cole. You're looking at, okay, he got three albums back to back. He got the mixtape run. He's built this fan base now. So then it started looking, okay, these three guys now, because like I said a long time ago on an early episode, every era had 3 or 4 guys that dominated the era. When we think about, of course, at one point, Mo D and, you know what I'm saying, and Melly Mel and Grandmaster Caz and all of them. After that, you had Run DMC and LL Cool J and that crew. Then you had Kane, Rakim, KRS, and G-Rap, Slick Rick, and some of them in there. Then, of course, we move into, you know, well, Ice Cube was in there too. Then you think about Big Pac, Jay-Z, all of these guys in the 90s, Redman, they was all hot. Then you get to the Kanye West and T.I. and 50 Cent, all their era. You know what I'm saying? Well, then after that era, and of course, Lil Wayne is in between that. After all of those guys shine, now you have J. Cole, Kendrick, and Drake. And you know what? This run with these 3 guys has been going on for a long time. And that's another story for another day. But Forest Hill Drive, to me, was kind of like, this is almost his Good Kid, Mad City of his discography. You know what I'm saying? This is the one where all came together. I still feel like it's probably J. Cole's most complete album. It's probably his best album. And man, I'm glad to talk about it today, man. But so when you first heard Forest Hill, what was your initial thoughts? Do you remember the first song you heard from it, Veg, or just?
I don't remember the first. I don't remember the first song. I think at that point I was like, it started to, because it's something I do now, started to ignore singles just to wait till the album came out.
Yeah.
But when I heard it, already being a big fan of mixtape J. Cole, I was like, this is it. Like the first 2 albums were kind of, he was trying different things. You know, some of it was more industry related, but you could see that the J. Cole that, you know, I loved as a fan of the mixtape, you could see he was in there on those albums, you know what I'm saying? And to your point, and I think you said it best, this was literally like, this would be a debut album for a lot of rappers. This is like a full-on introduction of who he is, a lot of transparency, a lot of thought-provoking, introspective type records mixed with bars, mixed with, you know, where I'm from kind of rhymes and stuff like that. So when I heard it, I already thought it was a classic because I felt like it was a perfect execution and introduction to who J. Cole really was. Because I felt like in the very beginning, Rock Nation was trying to match, like, because, and maybe we should just do a Big 3 episode, but there was at that time of the Big 3, there was others vying to be that Big 3, like Meek Mill and Wale, Cudi, like they were all the same time, and these 3 rose, but it was like Drake and Kendrick kind of established themselves in this way early on, whereas with J. Cole, this 3rd album was kind of like, okay, I've arrived, like Tone says. So yeah, I was impressed, and I was happy he actually got to do it, and he didn't have no features. So
yeah, you know, holding down an album, and I think that's still not giving the respect it deserves when an MC pretty much hold down an entire album, you know, 2 or 3 verses, most times 3 verses alone. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like I've heard people in groups before say, man, my first solo album outside of the group was tough because I was used to writing a verse for a song. You know what I'm saying? Now I gotta write 3 verses for a song. You know what I'm saying? Then you start seeing certain people start having 2-minute songs. They just run out of stuff to say. You know what I'm saying? But J. Cole is a writer too. That's what people gotta understand. If you even listen to his early rhymes, early mixtapes, I mean, he's a true MC, he's a true writer. So I'm not surprised at how great he did without having any assistance in terms of like a bunch of features on his album. I wasn't surprised by that. I just really enjoyed the way he brought it all home because, like I said, I think the first album, you know, your record labels, of course, hey, we need that single right there. We need this, this, and this. And so you kind of step outside of what you're comfortable doing, which is why I believe on Born Sinner, he had to join Let Nas Down. You know what I'm saying? Because this man was like, yo, man, Nas don't really like that song you did, man. So he loved Nas, so he kind of like he wrote that song about it, and then Nas ended up jumping on the remix. You know what I'm saying? Addressing it and everything like that. So I just thought that was dope, but that was just to show that J. Cole was aware. You know what I'm saying? And he did show that growth in that second album, but that third album, man, like, and again, that's the importance of people. You know, you get to your third album, some people start falling off a little bit. Everybody don't always get better. You know what I'm saying? Like, Cole got better. His third album, he had eclipsed everything he'd done before that as an overall MC. You know what I'm saying? And I heard apparently was the first single. And I heard that joint. I said, you know what? Cole rhyming, man. I like the vibe of the song. And I was looking forward to the album because I think the single came out really right before the album dropped. You know what I'm saying? Then I heard the album. And it was one of the ones where I actually could listen to it all the way straight through. And when I finished, I was totally satisfied. Unlike the first two, I like both of them, man. I really like Born Sinner a lot more than Sideline Story. But I still felt like it left maybe it's a little bit to be desired. You know what I'm saying? Like a little bit. Now, I wasn't disappointed. I thought it was good. But this one, when I got I think there's 12 tracks on this album. I think when I got like the last song, I was like, you know what? He brought it home. He did something special. And I said, for this generation, his core fan base, they might call it a classic.
Right.
I was thinking, I was like, it might be pushing that C word that I hate to use a lot. And people know me, I don't like to use that word a lot at all. You know what I'm saying? I fight against that word, but I also have to be fair and say, calling 2014 a classic is not hyperbole, it's not far-fetched, because if I can be 49 and call albums I love from great MCs from the 80s and 90s a classic, why can't some guy to look at Cole, the way I look at Nas, be like, nah, Forest Hill, that's the class. That's it was written to me. That's my it was written. Same with somebody, in their 30s might be like, well, Wayne is our Tupac or Wayne is our Snoop. I can't get mad at that. You know what I'm saying? So if somebody feel it deserves that type of praise, you get no argument from me, man, because it's actually a no skip album.
Yeah, and you know what? Also, like, what people need to understand, because I think people from our generation, and maybe some who are older, who are at least still in the mix somewhat, when they argue those things like how can it be a classic, and they're thinking about classics of their time.
Right.
This album is 10 years old. It's more than enough time to press play now and say, yeah, I remember that time. And
it is.
This shit aged well and it's perfect the way it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you make a great point about that.
Yeah, I listened to it again probably a week ago when we was talking about it, and I listened to it. I had a commute, and I put it in and played the entire thing. And it actually, funny enough, actually sounded better than I remember. I thought it was good. I thought it was great when I heard it back in the day, and but a lot of times with the new age of way we listen to music, you got playlists now a lot of times. So hearing the album in its entirety, you know what I'm saying? I do that from time to time with albums from every era because I want that feel of that album again and go on that journey. So when I rolled to this J. Cole joint last week, I went on that journey with J. Cole again, man. And I felt the growth, and I felt he was way more worldly, and it felt like he had been studying Black history. You know what I'm saying? Like just kind of the way some of his rhymes were, man, and just the imagery on on the video, or is it GOMD? You know what I'm saying? Like this the slave narrative type thing or whatever. And so the slave in the house and all of that. So he was kind of going somewhere different with the album. But I'm gonna tell you real quick, man. I put on that January 28th, man. I played that like 3 times before I got to the next song. Then I listened to the album all the way through because, Cole talking, I think this is his birthday, you know what I'm saying? And he's talking about his life and growing up, his family, you know what I'm saying? His experience, you know what I'm saying? Because he was a military kid, I believe, and then he ended up, but I think he was born overseas. They ended up in Fayetteville, whatever, with his mom and stuff like that. So he's a storyteller. So he told a story of his life on January 28th, and he kind of kept doing that throughout the album song as well, man. But I would probably say that's the one I play the most right now, man. But I know you listen to albums more like you don't listen to singles and stuff like that, but is there any songs? Well, let me say this first. 3 songs I listen to a lot, man. I'll go in detail later. I listen to January 28th. I listen to Adolescence. That storytelling on Adolescence is remarkable. And I listen to Apparently, man. It's just the creativity of those 3 songs, man. Do you have any songs on there that you would go to more than others?
Yeah, man. Like I got a couple favorites. Like I like Apparently, which also the other single was No Role Models. I really like that.
Yeah, No Role Models is dope.
And I like Wet Dreams because to your point, like you just already talked about how other songs had, this one's about his life and this one has some historical context as far as like Black history. But then you have a record like Wet Dreams that most dudes when you're young can relate to about, losing your virginity, but not in an overly confident way, not like the Coogee Rap way,
Right. Yeah, it ain't like that.
Right. It ain't that way. More so being shy, being scared, questioning himself, trying
it sound like what J. Cole would. It sound like a J. Cole song.
Right. It sounds like adolescence, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not confident when you're becoming a young man.
And you know what? He wasn't trying to go over the top and be over the top. That's not his personality.
Right.
That's why he's more subtle. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. But I think that was the thing that made me like the album the most because I remember listening to it in the gym, when I'm working out. And, when somebody's telling so many stories and, you have so many different ideas and concepts, the time just flies when you're listening.
Yeah.
Because you don't wake up to say, he already did this thing and this one's not as good as the other one. So let me skip that joint. Like you said, you could listen to it straight through, and I think it's aged pretty well to your point.
Oh, that joint Love Yours is dope too.
Right. That was kind of the thing.
That was a single too, because I think he had 4 or 5 singles. Yeah, apparently was released in December 9th, 2014. Wet Dreams was released the second single April 14, 2015. No Role Model was August 2015, and Love Yours was February 2016. So this is one of the things where somebody riding the album the way they supposed to and letting it marinate. Because I mean, basically dropped it December of 2014, but you still releasing singles in 2016. You know what I'm saying? And that might seem crazy to a lot of kids now because everything is microwave. But if you go back, because I recently was looking at some Janet Jackson albums, like Rhythm Nation, for example, and I remember she was releasing songs from that album for like 3 years. You know what I'm saying? And some of those artists back then, if they album end up becoming something legendary or a huge hit, they released songs for a long time. They didn't drop like 4 singles in like 6 months. You might get, like I said, just like with this, you might get singles for 3 different years on 3 different calendars. You know what I'm saying? So that was how it was back then, man. So yeah, he did a good job with those singles, man. They fit the album perfect. And you know what? He didn't do too much. You know what I'm saying? Like when you look at the track listing, like I said, I think it's 12 songs on the album. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think it ended well. This last song was 13, Note to Self. It's the last track on the album. And again, I'm big on the way album start, and I'm big on the way album ends. So having that January 28th is the first track, and then this Jordan Note to Self is the last track. I think that's a dope start, dope ending, and I think the middle of the midway through the album, you got that feel and that vibe, man. I just think he did a fantastic job, and it was critically acclaimed, and I think it sold very, very well as well. It was a hit. It was a big hit.
It was a big hit, and when you look at the build-up from there, because J. Cole had so much promise, just like most of the other cats, right? They were doing the mixtape thing. J. Cole was even doing the mixtape thing in between albums, and he got a pretty solid to great mixtape catalog.
Yeah, but before that, let me say this real quick. I just looked at something. I wanted to make sure I got this right. So Forest Hill sold 353,000 copies in the first week, and in less than 2 years, it was platinum, and now by 2019, it's triple platinum. You know what I'm saying? So you're talking about a triple platinum album, and you're talking about almost 400,000 copies in the first week. Cole was a star. He is a star. And this is the reason why I said this is the one where he starts separating himself, and you can start looking at him with the Drakes and Kendrick Lamars, because at that moment, he was starting to leave his competition outside of those guys.
Right. You know what's crazy about that? Like when you talk about like the sales and the success, you could tell in the beginning, I was going to say everything. I was going to say Rockefeller, Rockaway, Rock Nation.
Right.
Didn't really know how to package J. Cole.
That's
so
right.
They kept trying different things. And once he actually did him, which is this album, like completely, there really was no going back. Like he never went back to any of the things he did, like, certain radio singles that, they were hits, but they didn't do this kind of work for him. And he got to keep, his.
And you could tell it was manufactured. It really wasn't him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like these singles sound like something from his persona. You know what I'm saying? Instead of, hey, we need. And he talked about that on Let Nas Down about Jay and Rock Nation. They want them singles. They need the singles, and so I think he had to step outside his comfort zone, because to your point, we'll go back to these mixtapes. When you're making that kind of music, you know what I'm saying? I mean, J. Cole basically was a boom bap rapper. You know what I'm saying? You listen to his mixtapes. I mean, he's influenced obviously by New York. He went to St. John's. He spent time in New York. Then he came at that North Carolina, back and forth to New York. I think he live in New York now, probably. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, he was more of a guy that would rhyme over some soul samples, and he made beats like your Kanye and Knife and all them. And being from North Carolina, real quick, he used to come down to Little Brother show and stuff like that. He used to come down and see Little Brother Knife and all them at Cat's Cradle here in North Carolina, man. So he's a Carolina kid who was influenced by New York, and also influenced by Knife and like people like Ski, people like that here in North Carolina. And Cole has made some good beats. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man.
Yes, I think one of the things, like with J. Cole, because he didn't have especially not out the gate, but he didn't have the big hits that Drake had that sort of made him a household name. Kendrick was a household name, but he was still unknown to most until later albums where he really started to hit big with some of his music. But with J. Cole, he was always kind of the guy who was just as good, but he just hadn't gotten to that point where he cracked the top 10. To have a triple platinum album where
that's huge.
Truest form of you in the music is dope, because he was able to like write his own ticket, man. And really with I felt like it's kind of like Big Crit, right? Discovering Big Crit for me and during his mixtape run was like,
man,
he make his own beats, the covers are hot, bars are there, like everything was just dope. And then he goes to Def Jam and they try to polish it a little bit too much, and then it doesn't really sound like Crit anymore. It just sounds like this version of him that the mixtape fans weren't fans of. When you were like, well, for one, what's your favorite J. Cole mixtape? But when you were just when you just look at his mixtape run, you know what I'm saying? And I don't want to say a what if, but what was your impression of J. Cole? I know you said some of it, but what were your impressions of him before he had the whole Rock Nation and stuff like that, and it was just mixtapes?
Well, when I first heard the come up, man, you know, he's younger and raw.
Mm-hmm.
We always talked about Carolina and Fayetteville, and I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm from North Carolina, man. So it's pride in that, no question. It's like Biggie saying, Brooklyn, we did it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or it's like Andre saying, South got something to say.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing. So it was a lot of pride, and I like the way he always referenced places in North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? He made, you know, yeah, he went to St. John's and all this stuff, but he was still letting you know, I'm a native of NC. You know what I'm saying? I'm a rep NC. So to come up, man, I was like, yo, dude can spit. You know what I'm saying? He got the right little beats that fit his vibe and his voice. I didn't know how large he's gonna get, obviously, by listen to come up. I thought it was a dope mixtape, and I was like, he might end up being all right, man. I'm gonna keep checking for him. Let me just say that. I'm gonna keep checking for J. Cole. But man, that's 2007. But by 2009, man, the warm up came next.
The warm up, yeah.
And then the warm up was like, he's getting better. He's even better than he was on the come up. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready for this cat to drop an album or something because he's good. He's really good, like really good. You know what I'm saying? And again, obviously, NC, yo, let's get it. You know what I'm saying? But, and I think during that time when we signed Rock Nation around 2009, around the same time the warm-up came out, all that Rock Nation. But a year after that, I believe a year after that is when it all came together, brother. When that Friday Night Light mixtape came out, and that shit was his debut album for me. I was like, it's not a mixtape right here.
No.
This is an album, and I'm the first time going through that every track. I was like, if this is a debut album, this 4.5 mics.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was like. This is like 4.5 mics to me out of 5. Like, I was like, yeah, he's one of them ones now. I'm expecting a pretty nice career from this dude. Once I heard Friday Night Lights, I was like, I don't know when his debut gonna come out, but if it's anything like this, because this is his debut to me, is what I was thinking at the time. I'm like, if more to come is like this, man, he might be one of the ones for his generation. Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking, man. So when you first heard, first of all, did you hear the come up when it came out, man? Was you on time or you late to the party or what?
I was late to the party, man. I think I had to go back because I heard the warm up first. Okay. And I remember seeing the come up album cover or the cover to the mixtape at the same time I saw the warm up, and I was like, it was kind of dope. Like, this dude played ball, and he's naming these mixtapes after things related to ball. It's like he didn't get to go further in that lane, but he's using the rap lane to kind of mirror that. So I was like, yeah, I thought he was dope, but I became a fan with Friday Night Lights because when I heard that, I was like, to your point, I was like, yo, this is Section 80. Like, yo, this is an album. Yeah. This is an album. And when I heard Villmatic, I was like, yo.
Yeah.
This guy's like, I don't know, you know what it was? It's with the big three. Especially Kendrick and J. Cole specifically, it was one of those things that told me, oh, okay, hip hop's going to stick around. It's not going to turn into something less than, because these guys represent something old, but also something new.
Right.
I think that's what I like most about them. And I think, honestly, that's what spoiled me for the debut album, because hearing Friday Night Lights and then getting to the debut, I was like, what are they trying to do with him? Like, they're trying to make him like Drake almost, with some of the singles, not all of them. And the Jay-Z feature, like, that song wasn't great. I just didn't understand what they were trying to do when he just basically gave you 3 classic mixtapes in a row. It just seemed only right to make the album just as great. But
Yeah, I think once they start stepping back, he was able to come to his own. Like don't try to create something new when you got the talent right here. You gotta let him spread his wings, and that's kind of what he did on all his mixtapes. But of course on Friday Night Lights, but then he ended up doing that again on this 2014 album.
Right. Hold up. Top of the room. Yeah. So obviously, to those watching, this, we think this album is dope. When it drops, the mixtape, the run, whatever we thought about the debut, Born Sinner was definitely him coming back to form, and 2014 Forest Hills Drive was like his magnum opus. But let's talk about how it sits within his catalog. Now, Tone, he's had since then, and this is talking about everybody's opinion more so than just how maybe we feel about it, but we can say how we feel about it. But most people kind of felt like it was more of a roller coaster ride with his albums, because his follow-up, it seemed like his fans didn't like it at all. You know what I'm saying? What was it, For Your Eyes Only? Something like that?
Yeah, I think that's For Your Eyes Only. I think a lot of people complain about For Your Eyes Only, and that was in 2016 because he had So I think that's the one where if you go back now, you probably could appreciate it more than at the time, because again, now anytime, this is the gift and curse of dropping like maybe a generational classic album. For example, 2014 comes out, so 2 years later, I think 2016, For Your Eyes Only come out. I think it's a good album, but it came after a great album.
Yeah,
it came after his best album at that time. I mean, in his career, you know what I'm saying, and probably maybe the overall best project he's had. So that's big shoes to fill when you come out of, you know what I'm saying, after a great body of work, man. Like a lot of people get caught in their rut, man, when they drop a real great album. What's their first album or third or whatever, and then whenever it dropped, it's just like people saying, okay, how it was written gonna sound after hearing Illmatic? You know what I'm saying? How you gonna follow that up? Or, okay, Mobb Deep dropped The Infamous as their second album, and it is their second album, people. They did have Juvenile Hill. But anyway, after Infamous, is like, well, what they gonna do after that? But they dropped Hell on Earth. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to come after your best project, man, or something that's special in the eyes of the hip hop community, man. So or that particular fan base, you almost spoil the fans. So when they heard 2014, then they got the For Your Eyes Only. He caught some criticism, but it's to be expected, man. The more work you put out, somebody's not gonna like it. But I thought For Your Eyes Only was solid. Do you remember the album?
Yeah, man. Well, to your point, real quick, I think it does make sense, right? There was like 4 singles off the album. He did a tour, right? He did a documentary for it. He had a live album that dropped, that was basically 2014 Forest Hills Drive, the live version.
Yeah.
Right. So they kind of like milked that. So when For Your Eyes Only drops, I think as an artist, what he was trying to do was to do something different, but more in line with some of the tones of songs he's done in the past, which he's done songs like this before. I didn't mind it. I was kind of shocked that people who didn't like it or were clowning stuff like folding clothes or fold clothes, like, I liked it because it was real records. It was basically what he had gave you, but like you said, it's difficult to match that because you have to either decide you're going to give people more of the same, or you're going to go completely left, or you're going to use that as a springboard for similar content. And I think that's what he did, but people weren't ready for it. Now, 2018, though, he drops KOD, and I feel like people didn't like that. What did you think about that joint?
Man, I like KOD, man. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was a dope album. You know what I'm saying? So I thought it was better for your eyes only. You know what I'm saying? I thought he stepped it up another notch again, and he was back on point. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have no complaints about it, man. I even like the singles, man. Like, I thought it was a dope album, man. You know what I'm saying? I know some people still, I'm gonna tell you, when certain guys can spit and they start out in a mixtape era or their own little mixtape era, you don't like to see artists grow. You know what I'm saying? It's like, 50 Cent started with mixtapes. By the time we get to, the Massacre, it's like, oh, he got Candy Shop. Okay, man, but he gave you about 10 mixtapes. What do you want? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, our artists want to grow and have fun and do different things, man. And J. Cole started playing with more and more different flows, man. And, you know what I'm saying? And production and everything, just growing as an artist. You know what I'm saying? So I thought KOD was like more of the advanced version of For Your Eyes Only. I just think he just took it to another notch, and he might have heard the birds chirping a little bit and said, okay, let me go in a little bit harder. You know what I'm saying? I thought he did that with KOD. And I think what was the off season?
The off season, yeah.
After that,
2021,
the off season, and hey, man, all season has some joints on it. It has a couple of boom bap joints on it too for the boom bap heads.
Right. Yeah, like KOD, I was a big fan of it because it was a concept album, and like honestly,
I like the ATM joint, man. ATM joint was dope.
Right, and especially what the concept was for. It was more about him looking at the hip hop game and feeling like a lot of hip hop artists were pandering to kids with drug infused music to be like, addicts, damn near, They may not kids do drugs, but all the music suggested that.
Yeah, and you know what? KOD had a conscious element to it. Like you said, with the concept, being a concept album, man, he had consciousness throughout the album.
Right. Which is so weird, but I don't know what people want from Cole. But like you said, to your point, the off-season drops and bars is the backdrop, because that's really what he concentrated on. Like, I'm one of the best. I think it's really when he started to feel like I am one of the best. I am one of the big three.
Yeah.
I spit. I'm superior rapper, blah, blah, blah. But obviously, those who watching, yes, we know we even did episodes on it and all that. We know everything that's happened between Tony's channel and my channel. But let's just talk real quick about the big three 10 years later, right? 10 years removed from something like 2014 Forest Hills Drive. And J. Cole is, putting out these freestyles. He's kind of doing what Drake does with his, time stamp records, and Kendrick with the Heart series.
Yeah.
And J. Cole kind of does that also. He puts out joints where he kind of addresses something up front, whether it's Kanye or another rapper or whatever. But he started to like get on this crazy streak of like incredible features, from features with Benny, features on Gang Starr album and stuff like that. Then obviously linking up with Drake. Knowing where we are, Tone, with J. Cole and some of the music we discussed and the admiration most fans had for him, going into what he says will be his final album, The Fall Off, or I think that's supposed to be the final
Fall Off.
The Fall Off. What do you think J. Cole has to do? Because it seems like, based off of what we said throughout these years and all these different albums and reactions to him, his fan base seems to be, and I'm not talking about hardcore, but just people like him, seems to be a little fickle when it comes to J. Cole. So what could he do to kind of remind people of the great music he's put out?
He's like a dude in the NBA who, a dude averaged 25 a game, man, every year. But you're like, yeah, but it ain't 28. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like somebody always feel like Now, don't get me wrong. When it comes to his Dreamville stuff and his tours and all that, don't get me wrong. He has an incredible fan base, and some people believe in him 100%. But like you said, we just about the average hip hop fans. I think his gift is his curse. Sometimes when you gift it like that, somebody think that everything you do gotta be only built with Cuban links. You know what I'm saying? Like everything you do gotta be knocked out the park. When like I said, what's wrong with having a bunch of dope albums? Maybe a person has a classic album in their desire, maybe one. If you're lucky, somebody have one. Most people don't have any. But why can't just somebody be a dope, you know what I'm saying, dope MC, dope lyrics, dope bars I know people get obsessed with, dope songwriting, dope storytelling. He displayed this on every project he does. You know what I'm saying? He even displayed that on that mixed tape what he did this year that I might delete later or something like that. Yeah. So I mean, he was rhyming on that joint.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's never enough for some people though. And then, you know, the fall off coming and he did that song, was it Port San Antonio or something like that?
Yeah.
That joint, he's spitting on there. He addressed everything on there with the big three, the potential battle, all of this stuff like that. I thought he addressed it perfectly. The beat was dope. He had that like that Dead President's joint. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, man. I think that even when the fall off come out, as great as I think it's probably gonna be, somebody will say, well, I like 2014 better, or I like something better. You know, that's how fans do, man. You know, you're gonna always have some people who gonna always have a complaint, man. But I think that if you look at his discography, man, if you look at, first of all, the mixtapes plus the albums, Cole got about 12, 13 projects, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of work for someone not in the group, for someone who probably makes 70% of his own production, his beats, who writes his rhymes, you know what I'm saying? Who start his own like label, who has a big festival every year. That's very successful, very popular. He bring A-listers to Dreamville. You know what I'm saying? Like Cole, a legend in North Carolina, man. I mean, I know people always only want to look at our 80s and 90s people as legends. We don't want to look at nobody else because, you know what I'm saying, we older guys, older people, older fans, we have our ways about us. You know, it's unfair. You know what I'm saying? But what J. Cole has done with his albums and his career and with his Dreamville, he a legend here in North Carolina. He a legend in hip-hop anyway, but he a legend here in North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? And the biggest overall act in hip-hop out of North Carolina as a rapper. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people can argue like, man, and I've seen people argue who's better between him and Phonte as far as rapping. Well, okay, y'all can debate that. Phonte dope. You know what I'm saying? Who the better artist? Well, some people think J. Cole. A lot of people think Phonte because not only did Phonte have the Little Brother, his solo career, and the Foreign Exchange. You know what I'm saying? Because they got Grammy nods for that Foreign Exchange, Leave It All Behind. That's a fantastic R&B soul album. So you can argue who the best between these two guys, but J. Cole is the biggest star out of North Carolina hip hop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because Knight is more of he's a legend in the culture, but as a producer, as an educator, and as a professor at college and stuff, it's just different. Right. You know what I'm saying? But as far as a celebrity, that's J. Cole. But man, you know, but you asked something earlier. We was gonna talk about, I think, kind of how to rank his albums to a degree. Or
yeah, well, hold up, because we can kind of end with that. I kind of jumped the gun.
Okay.
But real quick, you know, to your point regarding the fall off, I think, unfortunately, I think like me personally as an old school cat, I don't have any problems with like what J. Cole releases because of what he's given us, right? I can't ignore what was dope about it. I'm not of a generation where the battle itself has now made me look at him differently. It has made me look at him differently because you can't be talking GOAT shit, top 5 or whatever, and duck and smoke. I don't care. It wasn't going to be no fight. But at the end of the day, I feel like we live in a social media society where they're so hypercritical that even if he don't talk about none of that battle stuff, and he makes a very dope album, which he's done, where it wasn't about top 5s and stuff like that. like KOD and even 2014.
It was 2014.
Like you don't get you're not overwhelmed with the bar talk. He's very capable of making that again. I'm just afraid we live in a time where they just can't let stuff go.
They can't.
You know what I'm saying? Like
I've gone back and forth with so many people about this on Twitter.
Right. And look, let me make this point because a lot of people are hypocrites, right? Okay, J. Cole didn't battle. Okay, cool. The hip hop in me says one thing, but that's all fun and games when it comes to hip hop. But some of y'all out there still listen to R. Kelly, still listen to people who have done far worse than what J. Cole has done. Like, sure, you can have your little fun, clown, oh, you duck the smoke, blah, 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 but it's really not that serious.
No, I heard some people. There are people.
Later was good.
It was very good, but I've seen people typing, and some of this could just be people typing any kind of crap on social media because that's what they do. But this whole thing of, man, I used to like J. Cole, but since he did that smoke, I ain't gonna listen to his music no more. What do you mean? What do you mean? Oh, I ain't gonna listen to that new album. Okay, well, fine. I will.
Right.
It makes no sense to me. Like, all right, the hip hop in us, like, man, you should have went on in it because you did this Kendrick in that other song. So you was throwing shots. You was throwing shots, dog. So you should have, you could have done what was expected, but you didn't. You explained why I accepted, brother. If that's what he feel like. I accept it. When the Fallout come out, I'll be listening to it on the first day it come out. First of all, he's a dope MC. Second of all, I'm gonna give my native NC a look regardless.
Right. Hey, look, Tone. I remember when Nostradamus came out.
Come on, man.
This was coming right to me. Like, what do you think? And I'm like, I think it's garbage. Like,
I was hurt.
I'm gonna go spend my money because that's the homie. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
I get it, and I just hate where, because I watched a ton of people talk about it. Obviously, I made my videos and I shared my opinion, but that wasn't going to stop me from listening to somebody like that. He's already shown they could rap about a million different things, and it really doesn't have to be about top fives. The only person who seems to care about that right now is Drake.
Yeah. Drake cares about his spot, and I get it. He's been on top, as far as probably the biggest artist in music for a decade. You know what I'm saying, or more. You know what I'm saying. Now, right now, Kendrick is the hottest thing in hip hop in terms of overall. But Drake, if he does something, he'll stream maybe more than everybody because he's more famous. In terms of just he's technically the most famous rapper probably right now. You know what I'm saying, or whatever. So Drake cares about. But you know what? They all care about being number one. They express it different. You know what I'm saying? They all care because again, and that's the reason why the battle did happen, or words was exchanged with all of them because we've said this before. I've said this on several episodes. Big Daddy Kane on the Beef CD DVD said back in the day, two MCs can't be in the same room talking about they're the best. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's what he said on DVD, the first one. It's true. So Drake cares in his way, Kendrick cares in his way, and Cole, he's took these shots best rapper alive. He said that several times over the years in his rhymes.
Right.
Yeah, he talking shit and stuff like that, but at the same time, when you really good at something and you in your zone, you like, man, I'm the best right now at this thing now. Everybody's spitting like this right now. So there's been times where he probably felt that way, especially during the time when he did that feature with Benny the Butcher.
Yeah. You know what? I think
Johnny P, right? Yeah.
John P's caddy.
Something like that.
But again, for those watching and listening, it's about hip hop at the end of the day. And again, J. Cole has displayed skill in almost every area. We talked about conscious, talked about historical context, just everything if you go through his catalog. So Tone, 2014 Forest Hills Drive. Do you think it's a hip hop classic? And is it the best album or the best project over mixtapes and everything in his catalog?
These are tough questions because my favorite project in his catalog is Friday Night Lights. That's my favorite. His probably most complete body of work to me is 2014. But my favorite is Friday Night Lights. And if Friday Night Lights was an official album, I'd be arguing right now which one is better between the two, between Friday Night Lights and 2014. Because those are the two best projects to me. But we talking about just albums, then 2014 to me is his best album. Then I won't rank the albums, but I would just say it's the best one. But and outside of that one, the album I probably listen to the most outside of that one is probably no. I think it might be the Off Season.
The Off Season.
I like the Off Season, man. I probably listen to that one the second most. What about you?
For me, I was trying to see real quick because y'all, I think if I remember correctly, we did an episode on Friday Night Lights. Yep, we did.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Episode 16. So I'll have that link below for those who want to see how we talk about that particular mixtape. Because we covered it before. I agree. I feel the exact same way as you. Friday Night Lights is probably my favorite. When I press play, it's just a whole different connection with that project than it is with everything else. It's like you said, when you hearing something really, really dope for the first time, that shit comes back when you go years later and listen to it.
Oh, it sounds fantastic right now.
Right. Right.
Sounds fantastic.
And then this album we're talking about today, 2014 Forest Hills Drive, I feel just like you also. I feel like it's his most complete album project, front to back, press play. You don't have to skip anything. You don't have to, I kind of like this song, but I don't. It's best served all together.
But you know what though? I didn't I didn't answer your question all the way though.
What's that?
I tinker on it being a hip hop classic.
Okay.
I'm right there at it. For anybody in this generation, like I said earlier in this episode, if you call it a classic, I won't debate you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I get it. You know what I'm saying? When I listened to it again last week, like I said, I was like, man, this is an amazing album, man. It's really dope. And looking at the singles and the success of it and everything, I think I'll go on record and say for this generation, I call it hip hop classic because it checks all the boxes. It had impact. It's 3 million records, 300,000, 350,000 first week at the time when it came out. Like I said, the singles, the videos, you know what I'm saying, the tours. He rapped his ass off, but he still got some commercial success. So I mean, the way people try to base stuff right now, how can it not be? I guess.
Yeah, I agree, and I think one of the things that makes it easy enough for me to call it a classic is for a lot of the same things you mentioned. Obviously, you know, the impact, the sales, the singles, the documentary, the fact that they were able to put a live album out for it. It was just a whole movement in itself. Hence why we're doing it right here on That Time in Hip Hop. But also when you drill down to the album and having different concepts, like there are plenty of MCs who will have an album full of different subject matter. It's another thing to perfect each one, right? Like Wet Dreams isn't Too Short did those kind of songs better, or Coogee Rap did those songs better. It's like, no, that song is in line with a ton of songs like that. Same thing with No Role Models, same thing with Apparently. Like his pen game was on point, the production was perfect for what he was doing.
Oh, and Tale of Two Cities. We didn't name that one.
Tale of Two Cities, right. So you know what I'm saying? Like I think it just checks a lot of boxes, even in itself as an album. That
there's something for everybody on the album.
Right. But yeah, so what do y'all think? 2014 Forest Hills Drive, J. Cole's third album. Do you think it's a classic? Did you like it? Did you hear it? Are you looking forward to the fall off from J. Cole? The battle tainted you. Maybe you don't want to hear from him. Maybe you will give it a listen, because of his history. And again, what we're not doing like what happened in the last couple of months. We're looking at the context of this man's career, his body of work, and this particular album and all the admiration that came from that album. Like there was a whole movement of platinum with no features based off of this album because it was rare for a younger generation to have that. You know what I'm saying? And J. Cole did it. So leave your comments in the comment section below. Follow Tony on YouTube with his channel, Into the Dome Podcast. Number of hip hop topics similar to some of the stuff we talk about here. The years, things like that. We did an episode, dope stuff. Also follow him on Twitter, because he on there, he got to back down all these assholes every 5 minutes. About whatever it may be. Any things you want to put out there, Tone, that you're working on?
Nah, not right now, man. Just probably this week I have another episode of the Dome Podcast, YouTube, like Veg said. Of course, Tony the Dome on Twitter, and Into the Dome on Twitter too. I don't know how they got it, my name on there, but nevertheless, man, pretty easy to find, man. Just enjoy music, man. So we discussing every genre of music, man. That's what we do.
That's what we do. It. Subscribe to the channel right here on Hip Hop Now Podcast for more hip hop content like this. If you liked it, hit that like button. If you loved it, subscribe to the podcast. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, which puts the podcast in front of more people who enjoy this kind of content. Remember, go out and support real hip hop. Peace.
Peace.